Hello everyone, hello everybody, and hey lab lovers. This is a hot topic. It's really hot in a literal form and figurative form because there has been bombing in between the countries Israel and Iran, and of course everyone is on the topic from all point of view, from the media, mainstream, as well as the astrology media coming from this side. And I do want to check what is happening astrologically between the two planets, looking at their synastry, that is the relationship that they have together as countries. I will also be looking at the transits and what to expect from both countries. And this is Mita, it's Mita speaking, your astrology journalist, because I break the news before the news even happen. Now let's get into the details. Now it is important to remember that Persia, because Iran is also called Persia, this is the original name of Iran is Persia, and Israel, they come a long way. These are not new countries, these are not new civilizations. They have a whole long history which is documented in different religious books. And some of the books that we can see their history from include the Bible, include the Hebrew Bible, and the Torah, the Jewish book, as well as slightly there's a mention of Israel in the Quran. Now, I do enjoy reading about different religions, reading different religious books, because of my Aquarius sign in my 9th house. I'm open-minded when it comes to religions and spirituality. I like to read and see what each belief system is based on and why they believe the way that they do. So having read these books, there's different religious books, I do know that there is a tight history between these two countries. Speaking of which, when it comes to their history, I would have loved to get into it. Actually, I had planned to quickly go over it, but it's going to take a lot of time. But in a nutshell, Persia, as many of or some of you may know, Persia was one of those greatest civilizations to ever exist on our earth, right? And when we talk about Persia, people think of Iran now and think that's it. But Persia, it was so huge, like an empire that stemmed from India all the way to Ethiopia. India to Ethiopia, all of those countries, 27 countries were known as Persia, under the kingdom that was ruling at the time, right? And now there are a lot of documented stories of how Israel, or the Israelites, or the Jews, were given a good gesture and a good support system by the Persian kings. I mean, if you read the Bible, you will see that in the book of Esther, you can see how Persia and the king defended the Jews, defended the Israelites, Israel, from being assassinated, So you can see different stories like this in the Bible, whereby another story that I can quickly think of is how Persia allowed Israel, or Israelites, the Jews, to go back and complete the temple. I think it was in Jerusalem. Now today we know about only so few when it comes to the real history of these civilizations. So what we see today, it is not stemming from today's political drama. No, this is a holy war that is here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Now, as of today, we just know Iran is a small country. We don't know that it is actually coming from an empire that included India, included Ethiopia, included Egypt, Sudan. All of these countries were under Persia, the kingdom of Persia. And as such, because these countries, they actually were strong, they did attract a whole lot of enemies. And as the time went by and the politics became stronger and their enemies became stronger, then they were divided. There was a lot of division. And today, that's why you have, these like India separate, and they changed the name to Iran of Persia, Ethiopia separate, Egypt separate, but Libya. But as you can see from our history, that this is an old war, because all of these countries that were under Persia, the greatest kingdom to be, because it also included Nubia, you can see how they were destroyed, and they are being destroyed, and they continue to be destroyed one by one by one, because it is not a war of military, of weapons. It's a holy war that is coming from centuries ago, and the descendants of their enemies, they did not forget. It's still continuing. However, obviously, in our economy and political environment, there's a lot of influences which are embedded in the culture or in the religion, making a whole lot of people forget where this whole thing comes from. Because as we know that Persia, Iran, was taken over, I think, in 1979, which is obviously the ascendant that we are using. So it was taken over by the Islamic regime, right, from the original Persian cultural regime. So there was a whole lot of shift, which obviously then made many people forget what Persia was about, or what it was representing in the history, right? And then there was a lot of focus on religion and, far away from politics. Because remember, these wars, these holy wars, as I call them, because they're coming from centuries, so I call them holy wars. They're not like, how you see in the news now about military, about weapons, or bioengineering. No, these are new things. These are new themes. But the holy wars were about like politics that was ingrained under religion. A religion was not the thing, but it was the power and the political control. Religion is the tool that is used to, continue the political power, the control, and everything else. So this is why when you read these religious books, you must also understand that, some of the chapters or some of the books were written with the intent to politically influence the world or the societies at that time. For example, when the Romans took over, then the Romans were responsible for writing and telling stories, therefore choosing which stories they wanted to send out, which stories they wanted people to believe in, which storytelling they wanted the flow to follow. So when you compare, for example, the Torah, the Hebrew religious book, the Bible itself, even the Quran, if you compare these 4 books, you just take all of them, put them in front of you, you will see that they were all coming from the original structure, because most of them, they say the same thing, change of words, change of names. Yes, but then the story remains the same. The story remains the same. It is the Old Testament. And of course, with the Christian Bible, then there is an introduction of the New Testament, which was handpicked by the regime, the Roman regime that had won the fight or the battle at the time. So, but then that is not the goal for today. The goal for today, it is to look at the astrology, the relationship between Israel and Persia, and see why, from an astrological point of view. Politically, we all know, okay, hopefully we all know, and historically, this is a holy war. It is not a war that came from yesterday or from 2 years ago. No, this is a holy war, and many people, some people may think it's just a new thing. It's just oh my gosh, they're fighting for weapons. This is just a minor detail in a whole long history of these regimes working together initially. Yes, because as I said, there are recorded stories of how Persia helped a whole lot of Israelites and actually saved their lives, because there was Haman. And okay, let's not get into the detail. I digress. Let's get into the astrology. Let's go. So before I get even more shadow banned and my channel gets even more shadow banned than it is already, I must say that everything is alleged in terms of of themes or things that are not relating to astrology. And of course, I am using astrology to analyze these relationships, right? So Israel, well, using the chart of 1948, and for Persia, I'm using the chart of 1979, having Israel as a Virgo ascendant and having Persia as a Cancer ascendant. Now, just from the get-go, you can see here, that there is friendship, that there is support, or there was, let me use was because now it's fire all over the place. There was support, there was friendship, there was respect, and of course it's linking back to the holy historical records, right, of how they helped each other back in the day, or how Persia helped Israel, right, and saved them. So you can see that in the chart. It's highly indicated in the chart. It's highly visible in the chart. They both have their moons in the 11th house. Now, when you have moon in the 11th house, which is of course for Israel in its own sign, indicating comfortability of how it's maneuvering and how it's gathering its resources, dispersing those resources, And then as for Persia, it is, exalted. And of course, as I said, Persia was the biggest of the biggest civilizations. So of course, it's going to show that exaltation, that abundance that it had, right, through the chart. So you can see for Israel that the moon is conjunct with Saturn and Pluto, which indicates that when it comes to their resources are structured or coming from structural ways, such as work or such as partnerships with other people, and as well, their own efforts. But it is with Pluto, so meaning that they have had to fight for their own resources. They have had to go out there and gain those resources. They couldn't just do it at home, sitting at home comfortably. They had to go out there and gain them, and when it comes to Iran, as I said, expansion, but at the same time, because of the 11th house, it also shows that they had to work with other people, with other partnership, other countries. They couldn't have done it alone as well. So that is very important to note, because it's something that they have in common, but at the same time, they are also relying on other people, and at some point they relied on each other, which is visible in the chart. Now, looking at their aspects, because this is where we're going to get the real details. I do have Israel's Mars conjunct with Persia's Saturn and Rahu. This is where all these physical fights are coming from, because, as I always say, whenever you see in Synastry Mars and Saturn together, there will be a physical impact. There will be a physical impact, because Mars is about physical expression and Saturn is about resistance, mostly physical, practical resistance. So when it is with the Rahu, the Saturn, it is also showing some foreign influences that are supporting Persia, Iran as it's known today, right? So this is where it's coming from. And we can see here that most of the time what is being fought about is about resources, because for Persia, this is happening in their second house of what? Of food, of resources, of your reserves, of your money, your bank. And for Israel, it is in the 12th house. Who's in the 12th house? Is other countries, is other people in the foreign lands, is your hidden enemies that you don't even know exist, right? So, which of course is being translated through what we see today with the bombing and the fighting and the threats and everything. Now, another critical aspect here is that the Ketu and Chiron of Israel is conjunct with Persia's Uranus. Now, whenever you see Uranus, you're going to have a whole lot of external impact into whatever you're doing. But with Chiron, it is showing wounding, it is showing pain, it is showing exposure of how you feeling, of your insecurities. And all of that is affecting their reserves, the bank, the second house of Israel. And for Persia, it is the fourth house, their homeland, their ground. Everyone is fighting here for money, finances, resources, land, homeland. That is highly highlighted here. However, now Both of these countries have significant ninth houses. When we talk about the ninth house, we are talking about the religion here. This is about beliefs. And as I have said at the beginning of this video, that we must remember where these two countries are coming from. This is a holy war. It is not a war that is, superficial. It is not a war that stems from today, yesterday, a week ago when the bombs started. No, this is a war that comes from centuries ago. And you can see it in their ninth houses. Because both of them have got their sons in the ninth house. This is the governance. This is where the sun is highly placed when it comes to religion, belief systems, and how to go about doing things, particularly relating to also foreign connections. Very, very important, but at the same time very strong, very strengthened beliefs from both sides. So it also indicates that not only resources are here, but that there is a history, ancestry history that stems from religion and belief systems and how things are done and should be done. And both countries are stern and glued in their own beliefs because they both have their sons in the ninth house. And they have Mercury, which is what? The writer of the laws. Because remember, the ninth house is also the house of the highest law of order. So now you do have these two countries who are believing in their religions, in their laws, and that their laws are the best laws, are the laws, because this is the king here. So each kingdom is believing that its laws, its ways are the right way, are the best way. And particularly when it comes to Israel, because Israel with sun early on in this house, it's still feeling the exaltation from the Aries sign. It is brutal, it is sharp, it is full with leaderness, like being a leadership. It is full of being sure, pride, ego, passion, ready for anything, ready for action, ready to rule, regardless of anything and despite and in spite of anything. Now, when it comes to Israel, they also have their vertex here, and when we see vertex, we do know that this is the point that changes your life. And for them, it is their laws and it is their beliefs. It is their belief systems. When you go and look at Persia's chart, you see that the sun is with Mercury and Mars. Extremely powerful in physical attacks, in physical manifestation of the royalty, of the power, of the courage. And it is highly embedded in spirituality because it is in Pisces. So not only do they follow the laws and the religion, but it is also accompanied with a high spirituality behind it. Whereas for Israel, it is based on resources because it's in Taurus. So for one country, this is about spirituality, religion, and the other country, it is about resources and religion. Belief system for both. Now, another thing that I had to look at is the fact that Israel places its Lilith in the 7th house of Persia. What is Lilith? Lilith is, that planet that will taint whatever it touches, and that will bring in abandonment, and that will bring in rejection, and that will bring in missing parts. So with this Lilith here, it makes Persia having to lose some of partnerships, because 7th house is about partnerships. So due to this weakened relationship with Israel, Persia had to lose lots of partnerships from other countries. And at the same time, its own status, because this is Capricorn. It had to lose its own status as well through this battle with Israel. We can also see that when it comes to Persia, they place their Sun, Mercury, Mars all in the 7th house of Israel. As I have said in many of the analyses I've made in the past, when you see Sun in the 7th house, there's going to be burning of relationships. Now, when you add Mars, there's going to be bloodshed. There's going to be bloodshed because it is opposite the ascendant. And Persia is bringing all of that energy in the 7th house of Israel. And when it comes here, this Mars automatically becomes a challenging factor for Israel. Why? Because Israel is a Virgo ascendant. Mars and Virgo, they don't gel together. So what we see here is a real contention from both astrological point of view and historical point of view. Now, I do have an in conjunction of their Mars. So Israel's Mars makes an in conjunction to Persia's Mars. When we talk about Mars, which is very important for this topic because it's about war, we know Mars is about war, it's about bloodshed, it's about assertiveness, fighting for what you own or what you want. We can see here from this in conjunction that Persia has had difficult time working or pleasing Israel. And Israel has had many requests or demands over Persia to change their laws or their religion or their beliefs. So here there has been this demand or request or forceful need for either of them to change their stance when it comes to beliefs. This is highly indicated here, and also when it comes to foreign connection. So I do see a lot of foreign connection, by the way, for both, that are helping them with this battle. There's a whole lot of foreign involvement. Why? Because for Israel, the Mars is in the 12th house, and for Persia, the Mars is in the 9th house. Both houses include or involve foreign connections. So you can see that there is a lot of power behind the scenes, particularly for Israel, that is supporting from a foreign environment. Same with Persia. lots of backing. But then for Persia, it is not necessarily hidden, their support, but for Israel, they have lots of sources that are supporting them from behind. Now, when it comes to fortune, because as I said, I see a whole lot of resources being one of the main reasons there is this fight. So I had to look at their fortunes, and I do have Israel's fortune in the 4th house, meaning that their land and their country and their own resources are what gives them fortune, are what gives them the stability, the wealth. Whereas for Persia, it is in the 3rd house, meaning that it is their efforts, their courage, their ability to do things for themselves and to push themselves out there. And obviously, the way they merge together communication, maybe amongst themselves or with other people, making friendships as well with other countries. So that is their strength. That is where they get their fortune going. Now, when it comes to overlays, I do have the fortune of Israel making an overlay in the 6th house of Persia. What does that mean? It means that there has been a debt between these two countries. Perhaps it's something I will have to Google, but there has been a debt. One of these countries had to borrow from Israel. Persia had to borrow some money from Israel, or Israel had to bail Persia at some point, regarding the resources. Now, not only that, but it also shows that it could have been maybe a payment of a debt, not necessarily a bailout. It's possible it could also have been a payment of an outstanding debt, but there has been an exchange of finances from Israel to Persia. Now, when it comes to Persia, what I do see here is that Persia had to give some money to Israel for the sustainability of Israel, or for the existence of Israel. So maybe this is possible from the get-go, like from the beginning of the time, as I said, thousands of years ago, because they making the overlay on the ascendant itself, meaning that the structure being alive, for Israel being alive, is again thanks to Persia, which connects to the religious records that I had talked about earlier. So it's quite fascinating to see how the astrology is agreeing with what the religious books have written in terms of the history of these two nations, right? So what I do see, though, when it comes to hot moments, or when and how things will happen, let's just get into detail regarding that. We're going to do it quickly, and but we have to talk about it. Now, when I zone into Israel's timeline, what I do see here is that, particularly for June and prior to the bombings, first of all, the first step that they had taken was trying to gain control. They had to find some inspiration, I would say, learn some accountability, try to gather, themselves, gather knowledge, gather resources, gather information, and all of that. And thereafter, it came, the feeling of this danger. But then it is not just danger, it is danger from sea. So I don't know what that means, like in terms of the geography that it's possible that there is danger, like in terms of, I'm just thinking politically. I really don't know how the intels work, but I'm just trying to think. So there is, I would say, maybe something that is placed, underwater to the sea nearest Israel, or something relating to water. That's what I see. That's what I see here. So, in some cases, the way by they say there was like an ocean very close by. There could be even some machinery that would make something like floods, something like that, right? So I'm just now trying to think creatively of how I can explain what I see. But of course, I do see unstable alliances. Israel has got alliances that are unstable. Okay, as I said again, they do have hidden forces that are supporting them, but at the same time, those hidden forces are unreliable, very unstable, very unreliable. So I do see that from their chart. Now, what I do see from Israel, which could be, some of the mistakes that they tend to make, is to have like not good judgment, like reckless choices, like make reckless choices, basically trying to trust people, but like with a blind eye, trusting allies with a blind eye, those type of vibes. That's what I'm feeling when I'm looking at the shortfalls of these of this timeline. I also do see some sort of vindictiveness, like wanting to place a revenge, coming up quite a lot from this chart. I do see inconsistency though. That's what I see. I do see some inconsistency when it comes to their efforts and how they, manifest their efforts, their work, how they do things. Okay, they do have a lot of burden, like they feeling like a lot of burden for the country, for their country, for their citizens, to the point that they could also not prioritize their citizens more than trying to appease the alliances that they have, the relationships that they have. But of course, looking closer to their certain, I do also see certain violences, cruelty coming up quite often due to their certain here. Now, when it comes to Persia, what I see from Persia is arrogance, right? Like I do see a lot of arrogance. I do see a lot of need to be domineering. I do see them refusing to see when they are wrong or when they're making a mistake, right? So there's this like coldness. Actually, the coldness part is from both sides. Like there's this reserved cruelty or coldness, that is all about it's either you or me. It's either you or me, nothing in between. I do see lots of resistance and perseverance from Persia, right? But what I do see here is, which could be their downfall, and which mostly is their downfall, is that they're a bit rigid. There's a lot of rigidity that I see. They're rigid. They don't want to change their stance. As I said, they refuse to see when they're wrong. So they don't want to change their stance, which could and would have been working against them most times. Also, I do see some, clinging to the past, both parties being vindictive, wanting to, give in to revenge, controlling both sides, so that is quite visible in their charts. So now let's get into the dates. When it comes to the dates, it's something that I would really like to revisit again, because I did see a whole lot of things that would be happening in their countries as the time goes. But it's going to be changing, because we're going to have those retrograde motions happening around November and October. So it is highly important that I give a part 2 here to see beyond the retrogrades what will be happening, because right now I did not want to go too much into detail, because it's already a whole long video, and but then I'm going to give the highlights. So what I do see now is right now we are in June, right? So June, I do see that what triggered the bombings and the poof is the fact that their masses are active. I do see from Israel that their natal Mars is conjunct with the transiting Mars. And remember, it's in Leo and it's with Ketu. As I said in my previous videos, when you get Leo, Mars and Ketu, it is about fighting for your ancestry, for your kingdom, for your land, for where you come from, for your people, right? For your strength, just for your royalty, for your pride, right? You're fighting for that. And of course, Israel had to fight for that, fighting for their stance, their pride, right? So when it comes to the Iran, what's critical here is that for the Leo sign, they have certain and Rahu, as I said, right? And now they have the Ketu coming in. For them, Ketu is meeting with Rahu. This is a big moment. This year is a huge transit for Persia, because what it means is that everything that they've been fighting for so many years is finally gonna give a full picture. They're finally going to get a full answer. Both their desires as well as their lessons from the past are coming together now, tying them together now. But at the same time, because there's certain here, it means that they would have a winning strike whereby they feel that they have won, but there will be a sense of loss at the same time when it comes to their identity, but in how they work, because certain is about our karma to the society. How are we seen? And for them, it is within their home, like the second house. So there are resources that they will have to lose. But as soon as that Ketu leaves, then they will be able to regain those things. But Ketu is here to separate Persia from their efforts and from their resources. But it's going to be temporary, as I said. And in my part 2, I'm going to give even further details of when and how these things will be taking place. Now, I was just giving a reason why there was the boom from the both sides. Now, when it comes to July, right, so from 19th, I'd say 18th, 19th, 20th. So from 18th, 19th, 20th July until the end of July, 29th, 29, 28, 28, 29, July 30. Right, so those dates. Now this is where for Israel there could be a sense of vanity. So they could feel like they want something. They're feeling like entitled to something. Like I'm entitled to this is mine. Or I won, but a lot of emotions will be coming here. I do see some need to celebrate or to find pleasure, like pleasurable things, right away. By there's also avoidance of the real responsibilities as a country. I do see though some manipulation, so either from their side or from their allies. And at this time they will also be looking for strengthening their partnerships, right? Their relationships with other countries at this time. I do see them trying to depend on someone. So this country they're trying to depend on for their enjoyment, for their pleasure, for their standing. So there's a country they're looking at for support at this time. I do see that from the 29th of July, so just after, until around 12, 13, 14 September, I see this as a breaking point for Israel. So this becomes a breaking point because at this time, Mars will be entering the Virgo sign, which is what for them, which is their ascendant. And as I said in my video, just shortly before, that Virgo and Mars, oil and water. So I do see a breaking point for Israel at this time. And what is clear within this period is that the enemy could be coming directly at home, could be coming directly within the vicinity of Israel, because this is Mars coming to the ascendant, right? So this is a breaking point, this is a hard point, this is a tough point, this is a point of fire, particularly around September. This is September, that period, that 2 weeks of September becomes even more critical for Israel. Now, regarding the date of Persia, when it comes to Persia, first of all, I do see around 26. Okay, let me start with August first. So around August, 27th August, right? 27th August all the way until actually October, September, starting 26 September. Okay, so 26 September, sorry, I'm calculating at the same time as I'm talking. So starting 26 September up until October, I do see some foreign invasion. There is an invasion or an attack. So it's either they are being invaded or they are doing the attacking. So this is what I'm seeing here. And at the same time, I do see that the opponent won't be seeing it coming, and as well they won't be seeing it coming because of the Neptune. So from the Persia side, there's their Neptune, and from the Israel side, there's also Neptune. So if it's with Israel, both of these countries, they don't see each other's plans, they don't see each other coming or going. And when it comes to Persia, if it's another country coming into them, or they want to attack. There could also be some misplanning because of the Neptune. So this period becomes very sensitive in terms of seeing the right direction or doing the right way, but definitely another physical clash, attack, because of the Mars and the retrograde Saturn at this time. So it will be like a sense of correcting what was missed. So whatever was missed prior, right now it's going to get even deeper. So that's what I see. And I do see that October is just a sensitive month, very, very critical for Persia. However, at the same time, they could be receiving some resources from other people. That's what I see. Because they're going to have the transiting Venus in their 8th house being conjunct with their natal Venus at this time. So they're going to be receiving some finances or resources. And then at the same time, there will be a sense of division. It's either they want to divide, or they have to divide these resources, or they're forced to divide these resources because of the Ketu factor here. Or they're going to be required to release them. So critical when it comes to their resources. And I do also see some manipulations, like people hiding behind the facade, like people hiding behind the facade, behind the veil, giving nice speech, nice talk, but being manipulative, because this is the 8th house of secrets and manipulation. I do see for Persia that around October as well, they could feel a bit isolated, or they could feel a bit invisible, like people can't see us, or our partners or our allies can't see us, like for what we really want or what we stand for. And I do see them being loyal, like loyal to who, but at what cost, right? Blind loyalty as well. I do see some loss of direction, again, that Ketu here is really going to give that division. So loss of direction, I do see that. I also do though see a sense of honor, a sense of warrior. I'm a warrior. I did it. I'm a warrior. Honor me. I do feel that a bit of, I did it. This is what I have now, But at the same time, because of that Ketu, losing direction, not seeing things as they are for what they are. And then when it comes to from August 27 until 28, so I have looked all the way up until 28, like beginning of the 28th year, I do see them gaining some networks. I do see them having their resources increasing. I do see them some sort of innovation coming into Persia, right? Like having, like they have enough resources, or they gaining something, the stability in finances. There's some sort of material gains here. So I do see that. So yeah, it's highly indicated here that after that period of September, there could be some gain, but it's going to start with a lot of misdirected efforts due to Ketu. And then 28, this is way 2028, August 2027 until August until 2028 beginning. I do see some stability coming. So August 2027 until 2028, resources are going up, networks are going up, allies are going up, innovation. I don't know what innovation. Maybe they're bringing in some new tech. I do see lots of partnerships going up. I do see, what else do I see? And they have to rely on partnership. Basically, the moons of these countries, they make them rely so much on partnerships. They can't do it alone. They can't. Both countries cannot fight alone. They do have people helping them, countries helping them, partnerships, and they do need them. They do need them. But then mostly for Israel, we can't see them. We don't know. But then for Iran, they are basically known most of their partnerships. But I do see them having lots and lots of partnerships in from August 2027 until 2028. So whatever is happening now, it is showing that Persia is going to come, out of it and regain some sort of materials, networks, and all of these things, right? So what else am I missing? I think for now I have said everything that is important, and I do want to make the part 2 because there are so many interesting things, so many details between these two countries. This is like a historical study when it comes to astrology. It is so fertile of meanings, of history, but like astrologically, it is a good study. It is a good study. Unfortunate for what is happening, and unfortunate for the people, for the civilians, right? But astrologically, it's showing all of these things. So I'll catch you on the second part. This is Mita. It's Mita speaking, your astrology journalist. I break the news before the news happen. Do check my website for updated astrological news and how I come up with these predictions and all of these things. For now, let me say thank you. I'll chat to you soon. Ciao.